target for these kinds of scams. So some of the in events, meetings, speaking engagements that have gone on since the last update, on March 12th, the Little NHL kicked off their Little NHL tournament with a banquet that was held in Mississauga. They had induction of a number of people into their Hall of Fame, and we're glad to say that 2 people from Six Nations were inducted into the Hall of Fame. Stan Johnson, who's a former NHL player with the Boston Bruins, and the late Mike Seek-Hill were both inducted into the Little NHL Hall of Fame, and I was glad to be there along with representatives of the families of both of those individuals. As I mentioned, I met with the United Way people on March 14th, and on March 16th, Kurt Stiers, who is the owner of the Rochester Nighthawks, was hosting Nick Sankowitz, who is the commissioner of the National Lacrosse League. He was in our community, and they dropped in to visit me, and Kurt gave him a tour of our community and also took him up to the Woodland Cultural Center, so it was quite nice to have him here. Later that day, I had also given a private tour of the former residential school to Premier Kathleen Wynne, who was in our community to do that tour just for that purpose. She was accompanied by the Minister of Aboriginal Affairs, David Zimmer, and the Speaker of the Legislature, Dave Levac. And it was quite an experience for her, and I really wanted her to have that first-hand knowledge of the residential school because, and ask her to support us in the Save the Evidence campaign. That evening, Councillor Sherilyn Hill-Pierce and I attended the Aboriginal Student Awards banquet that was held at Mohawk College. And I just want to extend congratulations to all those students that were honored that evening. I continued to sit with other chiefs on the committee which is talking about the sales of Hydro One. And the week of March 21st to 24th, I was in Las Vegas along with representatives of the Six Nations Development Corporation, attending the National Center for American Indian Enterprise Development RES 2016 Economic Development Conference. This is an international conference that is held every year, and I've been attending it previous years, and this year Six Nations was invited to do a workshop on a presentation on our development corporation and on the renewable energy projects that we are involved in. So we did that, and it was quite well extended, and it was an opportunity for us to promote our community and the development corporation and to let people know that we are looking for some international partnerships and joint ventures. On March 25th, we had our annual Easter egg hunt, and on the 26th, I was invited over to New Credit for a breakfast that's a New Credit Fellowship that is run by Kennesaw Salt had, and they were honoring the leaders in the area, and Councillors Hazel Johnson and Roger Jonathan were also in attendance there, so that was a good day. And on Easter Monday, I spoke to about 200 women who were members of the Grand River Women's Probus Group in Brantford. Of course, we had our language conference here on March 30th and 31st. It was held at Polytech, and it was very well attended. And further to our advocacy work we did in Ottawa at the beginning of March, we're getting a number of MPs who are contacting us and wanting to visit our community. And we're quite open to that. And on the 30th, Sven Spengman, who is the MP from Mississauga, visited our community. And just on Easter Monday, I received notification from Indian Affairs that the minister, well, it's Indigenous Affairs now, the new minister, Carolyn Bennett, also wanted to visit our community. So we scurried around and made arrangements for her to be here. She met with council on the 30th, and Mr. Spengman joined us, and we talked to her about the announcement of all the new funding in the federal budget that was released on March 22nd. And she advised that they are still working out how those funds can be accessed and whether it's going to be through grants or proposals. So we'll continue to monitor that and work with her. We also talked to her a bit about education and where do we go from here, because as you know, all our schools are still run by Indian Affairs. We then took the minister over to Gowanio so she could meet with the chairman of the board, Ruby Jacobs, and the principal, Linda Stotts, not only to hear about what the programs that the schools are running, but also their need for a new school. And while we were there, the kids were having a little social, so she got an opportunity to do some dancing with them. That evening, I attended the Liberal Heritage Dinner in Toronto at the invitation of Deloitte, and it was a pretty good evening for us because I had the opportunity to bend the ear of a number of cabinet ministers that were in attendance. And the day after that, we had another cabinet minister visiting our community. This one was the Provincial Minister of Education, Liz Sandals. She toured the residential school, as did Carolyn Bennett actually the day before. She toured the residential school. And we're again soliciting their support and trying to raise money for the Save the Evidence campaign. We also took Minister Sandals over to Emily C. General School for a quick tour through there. And then she stopped at the language conference and made a presentation there and a little speech. And then she met with our education committee. And last weekend I was in Paris up by the river on Saturday to welcome everybody and to talk a bit about the river. And this was part of the Grand River Stewardship Workshop that was hosted by Kairos, which is a support group out there that's always been very supportive of Indigenous people. And on Monday, April 4th, we had a visit from another provincial MPP from the Nickel Belt, and her name was Frances Gillinas, and she just wanted to learn more about our community as well. On April 5th, we had some officials from Hydro One here meeting with myself and councillors and Arlene Miracle, and they're going to continue to provide service to our community members who are having problems with their hydro bills. They'll continue to arrange one-on-one sessions. So if you need any assistance with your hydro bills, just contact Arlene Miracle here at our office and she'll set up a session for you to meet with these Hydro One officials. On Tuesday evening, April 5th, I attended the Champions Awards of the Bay Area Science and Engineering Fair, which was held at Mohawk College. I was pleased to see that some of our students from J.C. Hill and O.M. Smith won awards, and also that there were a number of students from Six Nations that took part in that science fair. So we're going to acknowledge the winners of those awards here at an upcoming council meeting. Also on this past week, I was in Toronto to attend another roundtable related to outstanding historical grievances with respect to Hydro One and transmission lines that are crossing our territory and which we've never really been accommodated for. So we had that meeting, and I also had the opportunity to have a meeting with the chair of the Ontario Energy Board. The purpose of that being was to find out more of what they're responsible for in this whole complex energy field, and just as an introduction. So that was a good meeting as well. And then of course yesterday we had the grand opening of our new fire hall, and last night was the finale dinner for the Healthy Roots participants who were doing the Healthy Roots project for the last 3 months, and they just talked about their experience. So some of the upcoming events, I've been invited to sit on the Senior Advisory Council for Wilfrid Laurier University in Brantford, and they're having their inaugural meeting on Monday, April 11th. And next week is also, I guess, National Volunteer Week, so the City of Brantford and the County have both asked me to join them as they raise flags to honor the National Volunteerism Week. There will be an Iroquois Caucus meeting in Oneida this week on April 13th and 14th, and Councillors Ray Miracle, Terry General, and Carl Hill will be attending. And on April 14th, the Miles to Go Cancer Group here in our community will be holding an open house at tourism, so please plan to attend that and find out the fine work that those guys do. I've also received a request from another MP, David Sweet from Ancaster, to visit our community, and he will be accompanied by Phil McColman, and we're just working on dates as to when we can finalize that. There will also be a leadership prayer breakfast in Fisherville on April 16th, and the Six Nations Farmers Association will be holding their annual meeting at the Sour Springs Longhouse on next Saturday on April 16th. And then next Sunday I will be attending a Chiefs of Ontario Political Confederacy meeting in Toronto, and we'll be having our own meeting, plus preparing for a meeting with Premier Wynne, which will take place on Monday, April 18th. And that evening I have a dinner engagement with representatives from Samsung, as we are meeting with them to talk about some other joint ventures or partnerships we might be able to get into with them. On the 19th, I'll still be in Toronto, and we're going to have a meeting with the Minister of Municipal Affairs, Ted McMeekin, to talk about a number of issues such as the West Street property and some of the boundary discussions that are happening in Brantford and the county. And on the 20th, the Deputy Minister of the Ministry of Children and Youth Services, Alex Bazina, will be visiting Six Nations, and he'll be meeting with our social services people and probably go over to Ganukrisha. On the 20th at 4 o'clock, Health Services will be hosting a palliative care video, which will be shown at the Community Hall at 4 o'clock. And on the 21st, I'll be taking part in a larger energy table that is being hosted by the Chiefs of Ontario. It's going to be including representatives from Hydro One, IESO, Ontario Energy Board, and the Ministry of Energy. We're not sure on the location of that yet. I think the initial proposal was that it be held in Timmins, but some of us are trying to change it to Toronto. And next Saturday, on the 23rd, or April 23rd, that Saturday, there's going to be a parent fair at Brantford Civic Centre. And then the week after that, a bunch of us are going to go to the schools and take part in all the schools inspections that are held on an annual basis. And again, on the 27th will be our community meeting to hear the results of the waste management study. On April 28th, the students at BCI have asked me to take part in a session that's called Women in Politics. So that's going to be an all-day event, and I'll take part in it. And the next morning, we'll be going to the Crime Stoppers breakfast at Hagersville Secondary School. And May 1st last year, May 1st is actually First Responders Day here in the province. And last year, we had a breakfast for our first responders to acknowledge the fine work they do and to thank them for the service they provide to the community. So we'll be talking to Council about that on Tuesday, about arranging that again this year. And on May 2nd, Monday, May 2nd, Justice Murray Sinclair, who was the chair of the Truth and Reconciliation Commission, will be speaking at Sanderson Centre in Brantford. So if you want to attend that, you have to register, so look for that on the internet. On May 5th, I'll be taking part in an Aboriginal Child and Youth Strategy session in Toronto. And last year, people will remember that we went to the United Nations Permanent Forum on Indigenous Issues, and we made an intervention on our land rights issues. Well, that forum is being held here, or being held again in New York on May 9th to 20th, and I'll be talking to Council next week about whether we participate again this year. Also on May 17th to 19th, a group called the Baywin, which was formed after former Supreme Court of Canada Justice Frank Iacobucci did a report on justice and on juries, on our participation on juries. So this committee is following up on that work, and they're going to be visiting our community as well during the week of May 17th. And the big bike ride will be May 24th, and again, our Community Awareness Week will be coming up. There'll be a lot of events. And just a reminder again that we are the host First Nation for the AFN Assembly of First Nations Assembly, which will be held in Niagara Falls on July 12th, 13th, and 14th. And we are planning a Six Nations All-Star Talent Showcase for July 13th. And the Great Law of Peace recital will be August 7th to 12th. And again, we're working on the North American Indigenous Games, which will be held in Toronto and at Six Nations in July of 2017. And the same month, Polytech's working on the World Conference on Indigenous Peoples Education. And finally, you can again check our website for community events that are going on. And I'd just like to say congratulations to all the kids and the teams who participated in the Little NHL. And congratulations to those who were champions. And just to let you know that we think you're all champions just for taking part in that tournament. So that's it for April, and we'll talk to you again next month. Nyawa.